Welcome to lesson 3, setting financial goals and tracking progress. All right, so in the first lesson, we went over what is house flipping. In the second lesson, we went over the mindset of a house flipping. But house flipping is mainly a financial process. So we're going to be going through setting goals. So today, we're going to define profit margins and set short term and long term goals. We'll also discuss accounting for expenses. So let's dive in. All right, define profit margins. All right, so analyze recent sales and comparable properties. Understand neighborhood trends is key. Check the actives, pendings, and closed sales in the last 30, 60, and 90 days. So when we have a property under contract, we are constantly checking the 30, 60, and 90 day days on market to see what is happening in the market. Is something that's going to affect our comps just popped into the market? Did something just sell that we are not aware of? This is there something that changed while we've been holding the property? These are all market conditions that you need to be focused on and need to be paying attention to. So we wanted to highlight that. So in the renovation costs, get detailed estimates from contractors. Cross-reference the details with your checklist. The big gap in construction happens happens in the renovation, and it happens with not having a detailed estimate. So having the most details estimate possible is going to be the benefit to you. I have a saying: if it's not in the estimate, it's not included. So you have to make sure whoever you're working with, as far as the contractor goes, have all of these details in their estimate. I almost prefer not to have allowances. Reason being is those might go over. So I prefer to set it up in a way where you lock in your costs with your finishes, and we're going to make sure that you are prepared with a checklist of finishes that make sense. So you'll know the costs in advance. All right, factor in potential cost overruns or low allowances. Right, like I said about allowances, we prefer not to have allowances for a lot of reasons. We prefer to kind of know a clearer picture of the costs up front, and that just comes from my construction background. All right, so selling price, set a competitive price based on the market data. Don't overprice. Aim for a quick sale. Price just below the market value to create sales competition. All right. Sales competition is your friend. So even though you've renovated this and you spent a significant amount of money on this particular project, having more than one person raise their hand to be a buyer of the home is a benefit to you. All right. Short term and long term goals, revenue targets. Establish specific revenue targets for each flip. Track progress regularly. So one of my mentors and friends had a rule. He said his rule was if he put 60 in, he wants to get 60 out. Now, does that always work? Not necessarily, but it was a good rule for him, and it would tell him exactly how to measure the success of his flip. So keep that in mind. So have a target on what you want to make on each particular transaction. All right, wealth accumulation. Plan how each flip contributes to a long term wealth. Think beyond a single project. All right, so you want to be looking down the line. All right, and tax rates are going to matter in your decision making. All right, so back in the day when I started flipping, the capital gains tax was 20%. So I knew that 20% was going to be allocated to the government when I was done with this particular house flip. So it wasn't bad. It was actually a very good rate. Now it's upwards of 35%, 30%. So it will factor in differently with how you choose to do a particular flip versus a hold. So investment strategy, align goals with your overall investment strategy. Risk tolerance should be considered. Account for expenses. All right. Acquisitions include purchase price, closing costs, and legal fees. So we're going to give you a spreadsheet, and in that spreadsheet, we'll have all of the costs associated with a transaction. And then it also will show you a projected number at the end once you factor in all of the details. So the more details, the better. The more accurate the number is, the better as well. You can see the whole picture before um, going into the project. So renovation. Um, Budget for materials, labor, permit, and inspections. So with inspections, this is a challenging part, and when we get into actual renovation, I'll do a deep dive into what you should do. So the way I look at coaching up permits, um, if it could be seen, you should pull a permit for it, right? So if it's a roof, you should pull a permit for it. If it's a window, you should pull a permit for it. If you're going to do windows and you're going to do a renovation on the inside, pull the permit first, get the inspection out of the way. As far as the interior renovation, we'll show you how to strategically put up, curtains, and tell your guys to make sure they drive regular cars, and then you set up your renovation that way, because speed is going to be key in getting in and out of the project, and you don't want to be derailed. All right. So carrying costs, factor in mortgage payments, insurance, utilities, maintenance, and property taxes. All of these factor in to the overall cost of your project, and you want to make sure that you have those accounted for properly, which will be in your balance sheet. Calculating ROI. ROI is a return on investment, right? So the way that it's calculated, ROI it's calculated by profit over investment times 100 will give you the ROI percentage. So in this particular example, $50,000 profit on a $250,000 investment equals a 20% ROI. Monitor budget versus actual. So we'll have a sheet that shows the projected budget versus the actual that came in. All right. So the good thing is, before, the numbers would change a lot. But because we focus on pre-construction planning and nailing down a lot of the details in advance, then there's not as much fluctuation. Of course, in construction, there is going to be fluctuation, because there are going to be hurdles that come up that we didn't initially plan for. And even if you are an expert planner, as I am, there's always things that pop up. So you should have this projected versus actual budget flowing, so you could see exactly the highlighted areas on where you're going over versus where you're actually at. Create a detailed budget before starting the project. Of course, track expenses, record all expenses as they occur. All right. So we keep a ledger on each property, and as the expense come in, as we just kind of write it down. As a check goes out, we write it down. So now everything is in one particular area. We have a hard copy, and then we have a QuickBook version as well. You should be able to look at it at a glance and track your expenses on where did that come from, what property was that for, and make a make a plan to consistently track those expenses. Compare actual costs to budgeted regularly. Adjust projected based on actual performance. As the project is going on, it's going to start telling you a story, right? Whether it's the market conditions that is telling your story, whether your selections are off and your numbers are over bloated and you didn't account for things well, it's going to tell you a story too. Don't ignore these things. Pay attention to all of the overages and how you could adjust them in a way to not continue to go over, right? And those are the things that you'll catch in the lessons learned after you've done a project. Evaluate market comparison, right? Identify comps, find similar flip properties in your area. So, uh, historically, people judge flip properties very harshly. And sometimes, I remember when I was flipping a lot, people will be counting your nickels. They saw when you bought it, they saw how how many days you had it. They saw how what you listed it at. So now they're counting your nickels. So you have to make sure that your property is completely tip top shape and you didn't cut any corners when it comes to that. So find those comps, compare ROI, compare your project's ROI to those comps. All right. So flip properties are very good comps for you. If they if they're done well, if they're not done well, that could be good for you as well, because that's a competition that didn't do their due diligence and didn't do their job correctly. Assesses performance, determine if the ROI is competitive, so you have an idea where you're going to land. All right, use financial software or spreadsheets. We're constantly using different spreadsheets to know and understand and track exactly where we're at on this project. So get used to some of those spreadsheets that we're going to be sharing with you. All right, organize, keep all financial records in one place, which I have already covered. Reduce errors and improve accuracy. Analyze, generate reports, and analyze performance. Analyze each flip post sale, which is my lessons learned. What worked, what didn't work, and the lessons learned. How do we improve into the future? How do we not continue to make the same mistakes? That's one of the things that's a life experience principle that I've attached to myself, which is never make the same mistake twice. Adjust strategies based on results. Refine budget, improve marketing, optimize renovation and workflow, and enhance property selection. All right. So this is a pyramid. And as long as you're streamlining this particular process, you could get in and out of flips fairly quickly. All right. Key takeaways from this lesson. Financial goals are a must for flipping houses. Measuring return on investment keeps you on track. Accurate record improve long-term profitability. So profitability, evaluation, and tracking and streamlining those processes are going to be what makes you successful financially when it comes to house flipping. So thank you for joining us in lesson 3.